Are you ready to read an article from CNN with me? We're going to review this article together so you can learn lots of advanced vocabulary, grammar, sentence structure, and pronunciation naturally. Welcome back to JFirst English Training. Of course, I'm Jennifer, and this is your place to become a fluent, confident English speaker. Let's get started. Welcome to our article. Let me read the headline. Trump team finds 2 documents with classified markings in a Florida storage unit. Just to make sure everyone knows what this is, because we'll be talking about it a lot. Classified, this is information considered secret. So secret information. Now, this is most commonly used with the government, but you can use it with anyone, really. Let's say you call a doctor's office and try to ask information about someone else. They'll tell you, oh, sorry, that's classified information. They can't give you personal information about someone else. It's considered secret. So we can use this in other places aside from government. 2 documents with classified markings were found in a Florida storage unit during a search by a team hired by former President Donald Trump's lawyers. A person familiar with the situation told CNN. Okay, so again, classified, this is being used as an adjective, is describing what type of markings. Markings are just anything on it. So it could be a scribble, it could be an X, it could be a check mark, it could be something circled. All of those were markings. But if it's classified, you can't see this. So sorry, that's classified. You can't see it. It's secret. A storage unit is a small unit that people use to keep information or anything, not just information, that they can keep objects. So let's say you live in a small apartment or even a giant house. You might want to get a storage unit to keep old furniture that you no longer want in your house or any objects. You can put that in a storage unit. What else here? Okay, a person familiar with the situation told CNN. Now, they're giving you these details because the source of the information is classified. They don't want to reveal the actual person, probably because that person might get in trouble if they identify their name. So you see this a lot in the media where they don't tell you someone's name specifically. Now, notice here we have CNN. I'm sure you know what this is. It's one of the biggest media networks in North America, at least. But I want you to notice that there is no article, okay? But you're probably familiar with the BBC, BC. Now, in this case, the article is part of the name. So sometimes we have proper names, and the general rule is that proper names don't have articles. Okay, but sometimes for companies, the article is part of the name. So the name of the company isn't just BBC, it's the BBC. But we're not using an article with CNN because CNN is a proper noun, which just means it's a name. It's the company name, but the name does not include an article. So you could say, I saw that, or maybe I read that. I read that on CNN. You don't have to say the CNN because that isn't part of their name. Just like you would say, I watched that on Netflix, right? That's the name. It's not the Netflix. I watched that on the Netflix? No, because that's not the name. It's just Netflix. I watched that on Netflix. But notice with BBC, you would say, I read that on the BBC, because the article "the" is part of the name. So I'm sharing that just because I know a lot of students are very familiar with the BBC. So I don't want you to be confused about why there isn't an article here with CNN. Let's continue on. Those documents were handed over to the FBI. Okay, to hand something over, this is when you officially give something to someone, but usually because it was requested. So hand over, I'm just giving it to you. But we use this a lot in a legal concept. In this case, a government concept because they have legal authority, right? But in a legal setting, you might be required to hand over documents to the lawyer by someone. Maybe the judge is requiring you to hand over the documents. So it simply means give the documents, but when we use hand over, it sounds more like an official or formal request. So that's what I would say. And this is a phrasal verb because we have the verb and the preposition. To hand something over, this is to an official request to give something to someone. Okay? So, for example, you might say, we're required to hand over these receipts to the auditor. So an auditor is someone who investigates your tax information, your reporting information, your financial information for a person or for a company. So you might have specific business receipts that you claimed were an expense and you were required to hand them over. Okay, let's continue on. No other documents with classified markings were found during a search of 4 of Trump's properties, the source said. The source, again, this is commonly used to say that a person provided this information, but often people don't want to be known. You don't want to identify that John Smith shared this information because John Smith might be a friend of Trump or an employee of Trump, and he could get in trouble for sharing that information. So the source represents a person who does not want to be identified. You see this a lot in the media. So let's say somebody shared information with you and they gave you some advice and said, you don't have to file your taxes this year, okay? You might say, who's the source of that information? So you want to know where the information originated. Who's the source? Who's the source? You can just say that, or you can say, who's the source of this information, and then you can identify the information. So the source is the person, the source, person. Well, it doesn't have to be a person. It could come from a website, for example. So where the information originated, where it came from. Let's continue on. The discovery of the documents was first reported by the Washington Post. Now, I want to point this out as a grammar issue because here we have the documents. That's plural, right? So think of your subject. I, you, he, she, it, we, they. You always want to come back to those core subjects to identify the conjugation of your verb. Because what verb is this? Was. What verb is this? Well, of course, it's the verb to be in the past simple, right? So this is to be past simple. Now, there are two options for the verb to be in the past simple. You have was or were. Now, we use was, I, he, she, it, was, but you were, we were, they were. Now we have the documents. So that would be what subject? I, you, he, she, it, we, they. The documents is they. So if the subject, the documents, this represents they, then why do we have was and not were? Because we need were, right? It's because the documents is not the subject that's being conjugated. This is even a mistake that some native speakers make. They take the noun directly beside the verb and assume that's the subject. It's not. It's this, the discovery. The discovery is our subject of the sentence. And this is an it. It was. The discovery was first reported by the Washington Post. So that's our subject, and that's why it's conjugated with was. This information of the documents, that's just additional information to tell you more about the discovery. But our subject is the discovery. So this is our subject, and it's it. It was. Don't let that confuse you when you're deciding what your subject is, deciding what your verb conjugation is. Always think about the subject. Now notice here, the Washington Post, and notice the is in uppercase. It's in uppercase, capital, because we capitalize proper names. Now, the is part of the name, and that's why it's capitalized. But remember, CNN, the source of this article doesn't use the article the CNN. It's just CNN. Let's continue on. The team of two searched Trump Tower in New York, the Bedminster Golf Club, an office location in Florida, and the storage unit where the two documents were found and where the General Services Administration had shipped Trump's belongings after he left the White House. Okay, so all of this additional information tells you more about the storage unit. It relates directly to the storage unit. The storage unit is where the two documents were found. Remember, the two documents with that classified secret information. And it's also where the General Services Administration, which I assume is a government department, had shipped Trump's belongings. Now, belongings are anything that belong to you. That is where the word belongings come from. Okay, so to belong is a verb. This is a good grammar point and a vocabulary point. So to belong, this is a verb. Now, belongings, this is a noun. And we generally use it with one's belongings. So it's my belongings, your belongings, his belongings, Trump's belongings. So we could say Trump's belongings were shipped to his storage locker or unit. To say that sentence in a different way, but to maintain the meaning. Now, a belonging could be anything that belongs to you. It could be as simple as a pen. It's your cell phone. It's your clock. It's everything that belongs to me. Everything in this room right here is my belonging, including this microphone, my rings, my headband, everything, right? So those are your belongings. Now let's take a step back and let's take a look at our grammar as well. We have had shipped, had shipped. This is the past perfect. The past perfect, it confuses students, but it's a really useful verb tense because it tells you when things happened. And that's its only purpose. We have two actions that happened. So the two documents, that's how I would shorten documents. Two documents were found, okay? So found. And then documents shipped. These are our two actions. But interestingly, this action comes first in our story. So I might think, if I'm just reading this, I might think that this action happened first because it was told first in the article. But grammatically, I know that this action happened first because of the grammar, had shipped, okay? So the past perfect is the older action. So past perfect, action that, so a past action, because it's past perfect, past action that happens before another past action, okay? Now, action, the first action is the past perfect, and the second action, which is the newer action, is the past simple. Past simple. The documents were found. The documents had shipped. So do a little practice with the past perfect. It's a very useful verb tense, and it doesn't need to be confusing. Let's continue on. The forced searches came amid lingering concerns from the Justice Department that not all documents had been returned to the federal government. Carried out in recent weeks, the searches were overseen by Trump's legal team, another source familiar with the matter told CNN. Okay, let's take a look at this. Very useful. This is a preposition, and it means in the middle of. In the middle of. So the forced searches came in the middle of these concerns. So you have these concerns, and in the middle of them, amid the concerns, they started searching. They completed the searches. So I'll give you another example in a political context. You might say, this scandal happened amid the election. Now, the election takes place over a period of time. You have a beginning and an end of the election. So the election is going, and then a scandal happens. Now, the scandal happens amid the election. So in the middle of, it doesn't necessarily have to be the very middle. It could be closer to the beginning or closer to the end. It's just another way of saying during. Now let's move on to the word right beside it, because you're probably wondering about this, and that's lingering. So lingering is a verb, and in this case, it's being used as an adjective because it's giving more information about the concerns. What type of concerns? They're lingering concerns. To understand the adjective, you just need to know the meaning of the verb. So the verb is to linger. To linger. This is when something remains longer than wanted or expected. Wanted, needed, or expected. We use this verb a lot, so add it to your vocabulary. Let's say you have a cold, okay? So maybe you have a sore throat and a little bit of a stuffed up nose, a cough, and you expect that to last for 3 to 5 days, okay? That's how long you expect it to last. But 10 days later, 2 weeks later, you're still coughing. Then you can say, my cold is lingering, It's in the present continuous because it's taking place right now. It's lingering. Once it's done, you can say, my cold lingered for 2 weeks. My cold lingered for 2 weeks. We also use this with the weather a lot because you expect summer to be warm for a certain amount of time, or winter to be cold for a certain amount of time, or for rain to happen for a certain amount of time. And if it takes longer than expected, you can say, oh wow, the cold, in this case, the weather, the snow is lingering, the rain is lingering. Now we use this in more of a negative way. So I generally wouldn't say the sunshine is lingering because I want the sunshine to stay. But if you don't want the sunshine, then you can use lingering. So in this case, it's an adjective. It's saying the concerns stayed longer than expected. So the concerns from the Justice Department that not all documents had been returned, that stayed longer than they were expecting. So these are two great adjectives. Great vocabulary. One's a preposition, one's an adjective, and now you have the verb as well. Add it to your vocabulary. Let's continue on. Trump's attorney offered to let federal investigators observe the search at his Bedminster property, but that offer was declined. Given the Justice Department's response, Trump lawyers did not make a similar offer for the search of the other properties. Okay, given the Justice Department's response, this is a preposition and is very useful. Notice how here it starts the sentence, and the meaning is considering something. So the something is the Justice Department's response. So remember, they declined the past search. So when we consider how they responded in the past, we're not going to ask them again because they said no in the past. So why would they say no, yes now if they said no before? So given that response, considering it. Now, this is very useful expression. We use it a lot. You might say, given his age, I'm surprised he's running again. Okay. Given his age. Trump is quite old, right? So I'm surprised he's running, in this case, running for office. This is when you want to be elected. You run for a position where you're elected. It's just the vocabulary we would use. It's not running, although it actually makes sense because somebody who's quite old, you also wouldn't expect them to start running. So you might say, given his age, I'm surprised he ran the marathon. So you use this in the sense, when I consider his age, knowing how old he is, I'm surprised. So very useful preposition to have in your speech. Let's continue on. It would be highly unusual for the Justice Department to observe searches that aren't conducted by law enforcement. The department declined to comment. Stephen Chang, a spokesman for Trump. Generally, we try to avoid gendered words now. Notice how I said spokesperson, because it's a little outdated to use spokesman, because in the past, they would use this for men and women. Fireman, firewoman, male man, male women. But now we don't really say that. We just use person to try to be more gender neutral, more inclusive. So you can say that, but the more modern way to say it is spokesperson. Spokesperson for Trump said the former president and his counsel continue to be cooperative and transparent. Okay, transparent. This is when you freely share information with others. So this is an adjective that is used a lot, especially in positions of authority or power within your company. You might complain that your boss isn't very transparent, which means they don't share a lot of information with you. So to freely share information. And you can use this in a positive. My boss is very transparent, which is generally a positive because they share information freely. Or you can use it in a negative. My boss isn't very transparent, which is more of a negative. They're not sharing information with you, which can make it difficult for you to do your job or make decisions. So that's a good adjective there. It is unclear what the subsequent contact between the Trump legal team and federal investigators has been since the searches. So subsequent, this means happening after. Okay, so they had searches in the past. So search 1 happened 3 months ago. Search 2 happened 2 weeks ago. So you could say they had search 1 and then subsequently they had search 2. So subsequent is when something happens after something. So subsequent happens after. Now, we use this as an adverb quite a lot. You could say, I got a promotion and subsequently bought my dream house. So you did this action after this action. And when you use subsequently, it implies the relationship between the two. You were able to do this because of this one. So it also shows a relationship. So notice this is being used as an adverb. Let's complete the article. CNN previously reported exclusively that Trump's legal team was considering allowing federal agents to search Mar-a-Lago again to satisfy justice demands that all sensitive government documents were returned. The matter was addressed in a court proceeding this fall. where the Justice Department asked a judge to issue an order compelling the Trump team to arrange for another search. Let's look at this here. Order compelling the Trump team. This is another way of saying forcing. So they're trying to force the team to arrange another search. They're saying you must arrange another search. So this is a verb, to compel. To compel. And this is to force someone to do something. So this probably happens a lot in the workplace. You might say, my company compelled us to work in the office. So a lot of people are transitioning from working from home to working in the office. But when you use the verb compel, it sounds like they're not asking. They're not saying, hey, do you want to work in the office? Do you want to stay at home? They're compelling. They're forcing. You must work in the office. So this is a very useful verb. All right, so that's our article. Now let me go back and I'll read it from start to finish so you can pay attention to my pronunciation. Trump team finds 2 documents with classified markings in a Florida storage unit. 2 documents with classified markings were found in a Florida storage unit during a search by a team hired by former President Donald Trump's lawyers, a person familiar with the situation told CNN. Those documents were handed over to the FBI. No other documents with classified markings were found during a search of 4 of Trump's properties, the source said. The discovery of the documents was first reported by the Washington Post. The team of 2 searched Trump Tower in New York, the Bedminster Golf Club, an office location in Florida, and the storage unit where the 2 documents were found and where the General Services Administration had shipped Trump's belongings after he left the White House. The 4 searches came amid lingering concerns from the Justice Department that not all documents had been returned to the federal government. Carried out in recent weeks, the searches were overseen by Trump's legal team, another source familiar with the matter told CNN. Trump's attorneys offered to let federal investigators observe the search at his Bedminster property, but that offer was declined. Given the Justice Department's response, Trump lawyers did not make a similar offer for the search of the other properties. It would be highly unusual for the Justice Department to observe searches that aren't conducted by law enforcement. The department declined to comment. Stephen Chang, a spokesman for Trump, said the former president and his counsel continued to be cooperative and transparent. It is unclear what the subsequent contract between the Trump legal team and federal investigators has been since the searches. CNN previously reported exclusively that Trump's legal team was considering allowing federal agents to search Mar-a-Lago again to satisfy justice demands that all sensitive government documents were returned. The matter was addressed in a court proceeding this fall where the Justice Department asked a judge to issue an order compelling the Trump team to arrange for another search.
Amazing job with this lesson. Now, share your favorite word that you learned from this article in the comments below and leave an example sentence practicing that new word. And you can download the lesson PDF that summarizes every thing that we learned today. So look in the description to the link to download the free PDF. And if you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, share it with your friends, and of course, subscribe. And before you go, make sure you head on over to my website, jforrestenglish.com, and download your free speaking guide. In this guide, I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. And until next time, happy studying.